Oh, there's a pretty one. It's just a mass of yellow, which is so happy. One is closest to God's heart in a garden than any place else on earth.
Ruth Carter Stevenson has always lived close to God's heart, spending most of her free time in the garden.
This is how you venture all your frustrations.
Ruth has created a regional arboretum for rare plants, a biological refuge at her mountain home in North Carolina.
Well, this is a pink kusa. It's the Korean dogwood, pink variety.
She's also preserved a natural sanctuary for native Texas plants in her botanical backyard at home in Fort Worth, on a street she's lived her entire life.
That's the seed pod. And in the spring they have a lovely white blossom that smells sweet. And you know, I adored my dad. There's no question about that. I was his baby girl, and we thought alike about a lot of things, and to my dying day I will always remember he kept saying, "Too much whom is given, much is expected."
Her dad was Fort Worth's favorite son, Amon Carter, who published the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and put WBAP on the air. A close friend of Will Rogers and Sid Richardson, and a friend to presidents and politicians, always working to promote his vision of Fort Worth.
You know, when I was growing up, when soon as school was out, we took our shoes off. We never put them back on until school started in the fall. Went barefoot all over this area, gravel and all. And it was a very, well, I just feel very privileged to have had the childhood I did.
When she reminisces about her own childhood, Ruth thinks today's children just don't spend enough time outdoors.
They don't go outside anymore. The last little boy in the woods, I read a book called lately, and the children say, "Why should I go outside? I've got my computer, and I've got all this and that and the other." But watching, planting a seed or putting a bulb in the ground is one of the most touching things you can do, because to watch it sprout, it's just magic.
And that's why Ruth Carter Stevenson has spent much of her life beautifying Fort Worth. One of her latest projects is expanding the children's garden at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden.
It has to be just the best. We can't do anything second rate. And that's where I was raised. If you can't do it well, don't do it.
Ruth feels privileged to have worked with streams and valleys in the 1970s, planting thousands of trees along the banks of what was then a neglected, polluted Trinity River. She and her group helped restore some of the natural treasures of Fort Worth, trees and streams that may have been destroyed forever by well-intentioned flood control projects of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Ed Bass has known Ruth Carter Stevenson since he was a child and has always been close to the family.
Ruth lets her love of plants all hang out when you go to her own garden. But in a larger sense, Ruth has played an incredible role in helping to establish the plant world as fundamental in the cultural values of our city. And you see it manifest in so many places. In our botanic gardens, in the landscaping that we find on our streets, and at the Amon Carter Museum, in our parks, along our Trinity River in the work of streams and valleys, and in Britt itself. All of these would not be what they are today without the hand of Ruth Stevenson.
Ruth is famous for sending handwritten notes.
And they're not very long, because she immediately begins by telling you where she disagrees with you, where you've gone wrong, and how you might correct your ways. And then, after this rather blunt and frank appraisal, signs them something like, "With affection, Ruth." And these notes are really wonderful to receive, because they're the sort of food that fires the process where people work together to make things better in our world.
Ruth Carter Stevenson is a woman of great spiritual faith. She has raised 5 children. She considers the Amon Carter Museum her 6th child. Her son Mark Johnson, on his mother receiving Brit's International Award of Excellence in Conservation.
Well, I think that she's very excited about it. I'm very pleased for her. You know, she is someone who has loved all her life being in the garden, and she is probably one of the consummate gardeners in America today. And also she realizes the importance that Brit has for the community.
Among Ruth's most treasured friends is Lady Bird Johnson, another Brit Award winner who championed beautification as national policy.
She is a remarkable woman, and what she has done and what she did in Washington was really, the years we lived in Washington, if you go around to DuPont Circle and there were flowers blooming everywhere and things like that. So she's been a great influence.
When Ruth Carter Stevenson is ready for a change of scenery, she journeys with friends and family to her mountain retreat in Roaring Gap, North Carolina, which overlooks the Blue Ridge Mountains. She walks up to 2 miles a day, always observing, always pruning. Here in her outdoor laboratory, she experiments with trees and plants from all over the world to see how well they'll survive the mountain climate.
These are the great Franklin trees. Franklinia alamata.
Named after Benjamin Franklin.
By Mr. Bartram, who was a great botanist.
Ruth shows Brit CEO Cy Somer around her mountain preserve, which she fences in so the deer won't eat rare orchids and historical plants. She calls the place No Deer, but the gate is always open to visitors.
Now those are the hybrid lilies of the valley. The leaves are bigger, you can tell. And that's rhododendron. There we go.
That's a big hibiscus flower.
Yeah, well, some of them are bigger down below. Hot biscuits, as my children used to call them.
North Carolina is a floral mountain paradise for Ruth Carter Stevenson.
We don't have any north wind, so we have to do it this way.
But Fort Worth is home, where Ruth spends most of her time with her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren, as she continues to work to save some of the natural treasures of this country for generations to come.
Just like me as I am. But there's nothing like getting your hands in the dirt. Now, I don't like worms, because my brother played a naughty trick on me once. He'd come up with something, and he'd say, "I have a surprise for you, hold out your hands, close your eyes." And he put a whole handful of wriggly worms. They were fishing worms in my hands, and to this day, I just will not. I almost failed biology at school because I wouldn't feel the worm where its setae went up. I got myself a pair of rubber gloves.